Can you remember the first impression of what it was like to be in those large, dark, invisible, enormous spaces?
Well, my first trip was, I was taken around by somebody who knew the mines very well, and I went around the wood mine, which is a lot of passages, a few caverns, but it wasn't till about 1975 that I actually went down the West Mine, which absolutely blows your mind for size. I mean, you're talking about half these museum buildings going inside the main first cavern. Yes. I mean, it's astonishing. There's just no experience like it to descend into such a massive space.
For me, it was the smell as well. The quality of the air. It had a taste that I've never found anywhere else.
There's a lot of mixture there. You've got iron. You've got the mineralisation, which has a smell of its own, and you've got the ironwork that's been left in the entrances and built up this sort of slightly industrial smell. Occasionally, you would get a chemical smell, but and maybe some of the fungus on the walls, maybe that produced some. And this, in your mind, actually gives you a sort of a weird experience, doesn't it?
But you mentioned the West Mine and the Wood Mine. Now, they are, although they're connected, they are different structures, because the Wood Mine is very much a contorted space, isn't it?
Oh, yes. I mean, it's very much more organised in the West Mine. You have definite roadways leading down into the rest of the mine. You have ways off, many ways off, but you've got a definite route through the mine right to the end. With the Wood Mine, you can go out of one chamber by 2 or 3 routes and find another chamber with 2 or 3 routes, and there's no connection in your mind there.
Well, that's something that terrified me when I found out, because although I never went down by myself, being me, I was always the one in the lead. And I've been going down for about 18 months or 2 years until I discovered by accident that I was the only one who knew the way. And I think that's to do with being the one in front. And I became lost in my mind down West Mine. These intricate passages and smaller caverns in the Wood Mine are one problem, but in West Mine it is architectural. It is like going into a cathedral, but they're connected with these quite small tunnels, and I think we both had this experience. To get into the main part of West Mine, you had to go down one tunnel which had a shaft in the middle. That's plank shaft, which had a plank over it. And when I did it, it had a beautiful map of tilting and shifting its centre of gravity when you were about in the middle, which could be rather disconcerting. Had things changed in your day?
Well, certainly, because by the time I actually went over that plank shaft, which I'd already read about in your book, actually, and a splendid bridge had been built, and with handholds at each side, and so you didn't feel any sense of, it wasn't until you got further in, when you got to the chain shaft, and then you got to some places where you could actually go around a ledge into a tunnel at the top of a shaft. Now, that really makes your heart, and makes you think twice.
And what about the experience of going through a partly backfilled tunnel? Because the miners did backfill, didn't they?
Well, that's right.
So we arrive at a tunnel which would have quite a nice entrance, and then we were
well, you sort of finish up on your hands and knees, and then it's a case of who was leading you at the time would say, right, we just go down on our stomachs here, and through. Well, to see a pair of heels disappearing down something about this height is, and you've got to follow. Mind you, you do know that if you're following somebody, they've probably been through before, but...
well, if you're bigger than they are, you don't.
Well, no, there is, you always wonder whether you're, when you start getting to tightness,
Because I have found that people find it hard to believe that we would willingly go down these places, because I remember that there was one tunnel in particular where the backfill meant that perhaps it's the shape of my head, but I had to turn my head sideways
Right.
because the roof would press my mouth into the sand if I went straight ahead.
Yeah.
And I was given a piece of advice by a midwife. She said, when she heard how dreadful it was down there, she said, if you can get your shoulder and one arm and your head into the space,
Right.
the rest of you will follow.
What a very good piece of advice. I think we've all done this trip, haven't we? With the arm in there.
And somebody else told me how to overcome panic by saying, remember, the rock has no opinion. And if you panic, the body tends to go rigid. And you can't get a length of steel through a wiggly space, but you can pull a rope. And the art is to relax.
Yeah.